All right. So I would like to give these just a moment after we hit broadcast. That's when everyone starts logging in. So for anyone that's watching on any of the streaming services, I know we're live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, all the usuals. If you want to ask some questions, we'll try and keep some track of that on there, but make sure to jump on in. You can interact with us, talk to us, and plenty of questions to the end. Looks like we have a couple people starting to log in now. I always hate that with Zoom, that it doesn't allow you to have people wait in a room until you actually launch everything.
Yeah, and George said, really red. I don't know what it is.
All right, yeah.
Working on. I'm not really this red.
You're not just enjoying the sun?
Just I just came in. I had the foil under my face. I was ready to go.
Yeah, does it see? There you go. I see some familiar names logging in. So we got Roddy on there.
Is Roddy napping on his couch right now? Or is he?
I don't know. I think he'll save that for your call.
He does.
Midway through your call. I think that seems to be the move.
I think he uses my voice to lull himself to sleep. Here he is. He's at the office. Nice.
Very good.
Tomorrow is couch day.
So, I mean, tomorrow is Friday, so that's completely fair. All right. Well, I guess we'll start getting things started here. It's also doing the intro piece. So for anyone who's just joining us, this is your first one. This is the MSP Initiative. Proud to be joined here by Ken Patterson. In just a minute, I'm going to pass things over to him, let him talk through some of his background. If you don't know Ken, Ken is an absolute channel legend with a long history of working with some really great people and doing some really cool things. So I'm really happy to have him here today. The idea was bring people together to talk about what is going on in the channel, how is everyone being affected. Ken's running a really great group that we're going to talk about. And, we're both lucky enough that we talk to a lot of people constantly where we're hearing what's going on in their space. And we're going to learn some different opinions about, how we're hearing people rise up and do well here and just how to stay positive. So, again, these are educational sessions, right? This is not a chance for us to talk about our products or the companies we work for. It's a chance for us to continue to bring education out there, and that's the goal. So if you haven't checked it out, mspinitiative.com, you can see all of our upcoming sessions. We have plenty coming. I think we've got the next 3 or 4 weeks already booked up and ready to go. I was really excited to get Ken on here, and he's one of the first people we reach out to make sure we could get some time with him. So with that being said, if you guys are joining us on any other platforms, you have questions or you want to ask questions, join in now. The Zoom link is available on the MSP Initiative's Facebook page. We're also sharing the PAX8 community page and a couple other really good groups out there. So make sure to jump on in and join us. And with that, I'll kick things over to Ken to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little about your past and your history.
Not too much, though. Alec, thank you. Thank you very much. Please excuse the red. I'm still working out my lighting here in my space. So as Alec mentioned, I'm Ken Patterson. I am the Director of Community at PAX8. I got my start in the MSP business. I think we stumbled into being an MSP. Back in the day, we had the first PSA tool. We had some very wonky RMM tools before these great ones came out now. And it was a really long, crazy road to through being an MSP. Got to meet great people like Alec and George and Sade and many people out on the road while doing these things. And over the years, I sold an MSP. I grew a bunch of MSPs to some pretty good sized numbers. And I really liked helping MSPs get through those processes. I made a lot of mistakes along the way, and I like to think that I'm no expert, but man, if I could share my mistakes and show people how to not make those mistakes and also share some successes, that's the key to all of this, right? And that's been my mantra from day one since before coming over. And PAX8 took notice to me, and I definitely took notice to PAX8. Anybody who hasn't seen what PAX8 is doing and what they're trying to do is not paying attention. And I just saw something special with the way they were doing things. I was talking to a few of the guys and we had a conversation, and I couldn't believe that they were as open as they were to saying, sure, let's let this MSP guy come in, not do any sales, not make any commission, but just come in and teach us how to better educate the MSPs and how MSPs deal with life, and then also to better educate the MSPs. And to me, that's a forward-thinking company, and that was a year and a half ago since I joined, and it seems like it was just yesterday. It just kind of blew right by, and they're still doing all those great things moving forward. I think, Alec, you know me pretty well. I'm a straight shooter. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't probably still be doing it, and I absolutely love it. And what we're trying to do with the community is pretty cool, because we're not trying to sell per se, we're trying to educate, and then through education comes sales, right? You don't have to force that. So I think what you brought up at the beginning of this, when you said we're going to have opinions, all this is opinions. There are no best practice from per se that we're talking about. Yes, there are best practices such as KPIs and being prepared and things of that nature. But I mean, in general, what we're trying to do is share tips and hope that people get nuggets of information that they can use in their company, because there are so many different businesses, so many different regions, so many different verticals, but we're hoping that the sharing of these ideas will help somebody get a piece of a nugget or something that will help them in their business.
100%. Yeah. And that's exactly why I feel like you've always had that kind of mission of just being out there. I mean, you had some really good experience working in and on MSPs. You've had a great experience working with a broader spectrum of MSPs now in your vendor life. So, you know, you were quickly the right guy at the top of the list for, for this, special edition of the MSP Initiative. So I'm happy to kind of jump into that. I mean, one thing that you really stuck to me early on was when COVID hit and nobody really knew what was going on, what to do. There was a lot of different Facebook posts and people were getting some good information out there, but it wasn't continuous. There was still only a set amount of people who were responding. So to see you kind of rise up in there and you said, hey, listen, whatever you guys want to talk about, let's talk about some topics, but twice a week. So you go do it actually same days as us, which is cool. So you're Tuesdays and Thursdays, 3 p.m., which is great. So if you guys haven't checked them out, we'll make sure to get the link in the chat here for everyone to register, but check those out. You know, they're not product focused at all. They're really cool because they're a session to go in and just, I joined in on Tuesday and we talked all about the PPP loans, what's going on with those, and just kind of who had gotten approved and what that process looked like. And there were some really good tips and tricks in there. Somebody said they had applied twice. They didn't hear back either time. The second time, the funding just showed up. So some something you never think about.
Right.
And just getting that broad spectrum was really cool. So I appreciate you doing that for the channel.
Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I don't claim to jump on these things and be an expert. And Dave Sobel had a great little piece on his MSP radio the other day talking about everybody's an expert, or be careful who you think the experts are. And he's right. But at the same time, try to listen to people that make the most sense to you and get that information and use it in the best way that you can for your business. And that's what our whole thing is. Look, we have vendors from all over the place jump on there. We have MSPs from all different sizes jump on there. And come on and listen, sure. But if you have a question, ask it. There's nobody on there that's going to say, oh, we're too big for this. That's not those people don't join these calls because they don't feel like they need anything, right? These people, yes, we have some mature MSPs. We have some not so mature MSPs. But at the end of the day, everybody on the call wants to help each other. And that's what makes it so great. And that's why it's not me, it's our community. And that's the one thing I want to get across. This is a community call. Our community is probably the toughest community I've seen. I've never seen any group of people pull together the way that we have to help each other and help others new to the community. That's what we want to do. And that's what you guys are doing here at the MSP Initiative as well. And, take it for what it's worth. There are some great resources out there. I say jump on every group you can at first and find the ones that you like the best or you're getting the most information from. I know we're not on here to plug people, but I will say from a resource perspective, you got to look at Joe Pinateri and his MSSP alerts and those things in channel E2E. You got to look at, guys like Larry Walsh in the 2112 and of course, Dave Sobel from MSP Radio. And those are people that I look to and information that I like to see because these guys are just posting information, helpful information, and absorb what you can and get it and use the best of it to your ability. And that's where I think that that's what needs to happen now, right? Just get as much information as you possibly can. And then you can decide, look, I like this Ken guy. His group is great. These people are good. Or I like this Alec guy. No one's saying there's a silver bullet, because that's the one thing, Alec, you've heard me say this since I was an MSP. There is no silver bullet to what we do. It's a tough business. All you can do is try to garner the information and apply what works best for your business, your region, your verticals.
Absolutely. And one thing you touched on there, the vertical side is, you could be completely different. You're completely different affected right now by this. Yeah. Everyone thinks medical is booming, but if you were elective medical, if you had a lot of those plastic surgery offices or other elective surgeries, you're in a tough spot right now, because in most states, those still aren't allowed. So I think verticalized definitely changes day to day how you're being affected right now, and just how your business looks and how you're marketing. So you're right. There's definitely no silver bullet, but I think the thing you can do for yourself is realize that there's always something to learn, right? Even if you're Microsoft, I promise you, Microsoft's still out there trying to listen to big, webinars and things like that on how to better their education, how to better themselves. Because no one does everything perfect. I've worked with some of the smallest vendors. I've worked with some of the biggest.
It's interesting that you mentioned Microsoft too, because, there was a time, and I know when I was an MSP, I was always saying, man, why don't these guys, they have all the tools and the resources. Why are they not stepping up to help us? And boy, I'll tell you, over the last year and a half, Microsoft's really been stepping up their game. And, we did an event, at this point, I don't remember how long ago, just because of how long this has been. This feels like we've been doing this for six months. We had an event, and they said they were sending out some resources because they knew the resources were going to be important. I think it was an Azure boot camp, and they sent out 6 top people to talk to a group of small business MSPs. Think about that for a minute. Years ago, you would never have gotten that. You would have got some shale schmo or something. By the way, one of the guys on the panel, we were talking about Intune, he wrote it. He was one of the creators of Intune. Wow. He was like, oh, well, I'm kind of proud about that. And all of a sudden, the propeller on his head started spinning, right? and it was awesome. You were just seeing kind of the breadth of what they were sending out there. And 2 of those guys pulled me into a room and started asking, what does the SMB want? You used to be an MSP. And I thought, wow, they're really paying attention now more than ever. And then on top of that, with the calls we've had now, I got 2 Microsoft guys reaching out to me saying, Ken, these are great. These MSPs are really digging in here and asking questions. And, what are some ways that Microsoft could help? It's just crazy to see that they're paying a lot more attention to us, the SMB market, than they ever have. And it's just good to see that, not only us little guys, but the big guys are pulling together and saying, hey, look, we know we got to try to do everything we can. Obviously, they've done the free teams, and they've done some E1 licensing type stuff. And I'm sure there's more to come from a lot of the larger companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of those larger vendors have done some pretty cool things through this. But you're right. I've definitely seen that trend. I mean, I was lucky enough to I actually went to your PAX 8 boot camp out here in upstate New York.
Mission briefing,
excuse me. Great event, though. I really liked it because you guys did bring, the thing is, Microsoft's always had a lot of cool programs, but not always been the best with communicating them down to the MSPs. And I think they're starting to realize that partners like you guys walked out of there with a Microsoft specialist that walked in and said, here's exactly what you can do today to go home and make money. Not that you don't have to do anything different, but go through, claim these, do this, and you're done. And you saw every single person in the room say, oh, wow, I didn't even know that. And people walked out of there and made money that night, and that's pretty cool. And it's good to just see that education kind of getting down to the MSPs. And they are doing those programs. It's just not always, I think, communicated well.
Right. And that's the thing. Look, they're a large company. We know communication can be difficult. And that's why, one of the reasons why PAX 8 exists, right? For the Microsoft stuff. And then, of course, for the vendor stuff that we do with the help with the other vendors on our line card. But we had the biggest success story so far that we've had out of that was one of my good friends switched over to PAX 8 in March. And by June, he said, I'm noticing something crazy and I got to go do the math on this. But if it's true, we need to talk again because I'm pretty much going to do anything you tell me to do. And I'm kind of like, what are you talking about? We found $42,000 in back-end rebates that were just wrong because of simple banking information. And that's something that a lot of companies are not taking the time to do, and PAX 8 does. So he met with our Microsoft person at the event, went back, hooked her up with his person at his office, and they found this. And that was the beginning of just a bunch of things. Before this, my big claim to fame was I found $2,000 extra per month, which is good. on stuff that I was missing because of something I wasn't utilizing with PAX 8 or I didn't know they offered in the beginning. Started using it and I was saving myself $2,000 a month because I was not catching prorated licensing, which that's something that they do in the tool. So it's all about that education, right? The little tips, the little tricks, making sure that people are using their resources. Because look, MSP's job, probably the toughest job on the planet. I mean, other than, being on the front line and being in, medical and these things, MSP's jobs are tough. They wear 5,000 different hats. They're in the weeds almost all the time. It's so difficult as an owner to work on your business instead of in your business, right? We've talked about this many times. It's so hard to do. So on top of that, you have to also learn how Microsoft rebates and incentives work. You have to know which vendors are giving you the best of everything, not price, because we talk about that, right? Price isn't everything. It's about your value. The same way you sell to your clients, you should respect your vendors in the same way. Stop thinking about price. Think about value that you're getting with that service. So yeah, it gets really difficult from MSP to make those kinds of decisions. So anything we can do from the other side of the fence as distributor, as vendors, to educate them is going to go a long way. And I think that's one of those things that we all are trying to do, right? We're trying to bring to the table here is let's educate these partners so they can make better decisions. And they're not only thinking about margin or basically that's all they have time to think about when they're that busy. So if you can come back and say, hey, by the way, this is going to affect your bottom line in this way. We're going to bring these new efficiencies. It's like night and day. It's what made me change my whole thing over when I was, consulting the last company I was at with PAX 8 and made me decide to, jump ship and help more MSPs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. It's, a lot of MSPs, you're seeing that split. You are seeing some of the more mature shops are getting that message and they're running with it. It's less so about, hey, guy down the road, I know he wants $200 a user. I'm going to do it for $190 and I'm going to save you all this money. It's stop, if you try and penny pinch against your competitors, you may win, but that someone down the road will come along at slightly less, of a cut. Right. And they will take your business again.
If they pick
tell them on that value.
If someone picks you over price, that means they'll pick someone else over you over price. You have to educate your customers the same way that you're trying to get your work with your vendors. You have to understand it's about the value. And if you can build that value up in the community, no one's trying to discount your prices because they know they're getting the value for the cost that they're paying for, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I think, you hit on the head there. Look at your vendors. Who are the vendors that you as an MSP love to work with? Who's the person you say, you know what, even if you're like, hey, they might be a little more expensive, but I would never drop them because I love working with them. Why? Right. Is it the relationship? Is it the education? What are they putting out? Take that same exact step and put that downstream. Try and deliver that same kind of value. And I get it. You don't have a 50-person marketing team, but your vendors are giving you marketing. They're giving you that education, that value. Tap into it and utilize that. And that's why we do that, to go downstream, because we want to see you successful, right? I mean, that's the whole cool part here is it's a partnership. We're tied to you. If you're successful, we're successful. So.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because, being on the other side of the fence, when I was on the other side of the fence, it was, there was so many different perspectives. And then I jump on this side and I'm starting to see MSPs do to their vendors what they don't want their customers to do to them. And it's so interesting. I think you saw it. I posted it out on social media. And I said, guys, I'm a little confused here. We spent our whole careers as MSPs saying, my customer doesn't value what I do. They're beating me up over price. And then we turn around and go to our vendor and say, if you don't give me 2 extra points, I'm going to this other guy. Whoa, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to, if you want to build your business on value, you should take the same approach with your vendors that you want your customers to take with you, right? Do unto others. And that's a perfect example of what we've been seeing happen quite a bit, is that I'm watching these guys beat up vendors over 2 points or something silly. And I said, but wait a minute, do those guys have great support? How's their billing? What are they doing? What are they doing from a provisioning standpoint or from a relational standpoint? How are they taking care of you now? I mean, now we can talk about how are things going during this? How often do you hear from the other guys that are saying that they can offer you these points? Other than, guess what? There's now a fire sale. Magically, your competitor can offer 50% off their services and say, hey, you don't want to use Alec. I'm going to give it to you for 50% off. Come over here. If you see that, run. That's a scary proposition. That's not how anybody should be selling right now. It should be all about relationships and taking care of people. And the minute you devalue your service to give a discount, I think that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, because I mean, the thing is that discount's not going to be, it's not going to go away. It's not going to be expected to go away.
Right.
Your partner's going to have that. If 3 months from now we all have a vaccine and this whole thing's over and we're getting back on the road, that customer is going to turn around to you and say, well, you did it then, let's just keep it going. And even if it's they will constantly keep moving it, that's going to be a moving target. Or they're just going to start shopping around because they're going to think you took too high of a margin on them, and they're going to think they got fleeced for a while there. So it's a really messy, slippery slope.
Right.
So we did have a couple comments that came through.
Sure.
I
I've been watching too.
All right, great. You want to touch on Eric's comment first?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we don't want to come on here and plug tools. Alec could definitely talk a little bit more. I'm just saying, compared to what I was using back in 1998 or 96, which no one was really talking about RMM back then, these tools were homemade. They worked, but there was a lot of broken false positives and things like that. I know for a fact that some of the tools you're probably questioning right now definitely come with their own set of problems, but the way I look at it is, look, you got to look at the tools that work best for you and your business. I don't think any of them are perfect. No one's perfect. Not one, not Pax8, not anybody is perfect. How they deal with the problems when they have them is probably the easiest way to gauge that, matched up with, the whole value. But the tools nowadays are definitely a heck of a lot better than the tools we were using back before 2000.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we see tools pop up now at such a rapid rate. I mean, you look at some of the just innovative, cool things that have come out. And I just think it's, coding languages have changed. They've gotten a little bit easier. You can do a lot more with them. Computer processing is a lot better. But some of the stuff that's come out over the last 5-10 years has just been awesome to see for our space. And it's going to continue to go that way.
And I would, on that note, I would also recommend, I know I'm a geek. Right. I was, I'm part of this geek world as an MSP, and I was one of the first guys to go out to shows and come back and say, hey, look at all these shiny toys, and throw them down and say, guys, figure this out. And none of them would ever get implemented, right? Because you're coming back with all these crazy tools, right? What I say is focus on priority, what you need, and make sure whatever it is you do want to implement, you implement it internally first. We have the term eat your own dog food. Pax8 likes to change it to drink your own champagne, so it's a little more civilized. But whatever you want to call it, it's true. If your guys are using the tools on a daily basis, they know what breaks, what doesn't break, and how all that comes together, you're more inclined to do a better job when you're using it for your clients. So my recommendation is don't go crazy trying to find every new shiny tool just because it's a shiny new tool. Prioritize. If you have an area that you need to improve upon, go look at the tools, implement them internally, see what works, what doesn't work, and then go from there.
100%. I think you're always going to, these tools are massive at this point. They do so many things, especially when you get into the PSA, even RMM world now, the amount of scripting and things you can do throughout them. If you're not using it internally, you're never going to fully tap into that tool. Whereas if you're using internally, your guys are just going to play with it because they can, right? It's internal. They're going to start to, kind of edge into different areas of the product, and they will come out much better off and be able to deliver it that much better to your clients. We see that a lot in the phone world all the time, especially on like some of the auto provisioning, stuff like that. People don't really utilize it until they use it internally, and they're like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. We can do a lot more with this. And all of a sudden, all these ideas start turning. And
well, and the flip side of that too is when a customer calls and your tech can go, yeah, we see that too. We're working on that in here. It makes the customer feel a hell of a lot better than, yeah, I haven't seen that yet. And because you don't use the tool. So it's much better to do those things. And we, as big as we are with the thing, with how many vendors we have, we actually use the vendors we sell internally as well, to make sure that we know it. So when someone calls me and, has a question about Teams or something, I'm not an expert, but I use the crap every single day, right? So I'm in there. I could say, oh, like I told you, I found a little tip where you can add backgrounds into Teams now, right? It's just because I messed with it, because it's on my desk. I have to use it. We use it for team meetings. And, I found a way to just do something kind of cool because I'm a nerd. And one night I was messing around with it. That's the type of things that happen when you have a tool that's in-house and everybody's utilizing it.
Absolutely.
You
No,
want
I
to
think
you want to talk a little bit about? We have another question on there that Keith Nelson. It wasn't a question; it was actually a very good point. I don't know if you want to touch on
it was a
that.
great statement. Yeah. So Keith actually made a comment. He said, so for everyone that's watching on the other platforms, Keith said, once you commoditize your user pricing per unit, per client, you're going to put that blue light out, that Kmart blue light special.
Gotta use that.
That's great. I love that. You're training your clients that you do not offer value. You should sell simply on business process reengineering, which is great. I mean, you will see that the most successful people, when you look around, you find that, everyone always looks for that, right? Who's the successful guy in the room? Whether you're at a Pack Day mission briefing or you're at a big conference, you're always looking for the guy that's on stage or the guy who's pumped up because he clearly runs a successful business or she's running this crazy multi-million-dollar business that, how do I get to their level? And I think it's important to understand a lot of those people you'll see these days are going out there and they're not the IT guy. They're not showing up when something breaks or to fix a printer. They're going in there and having strategic quarterly meetings. They are meeting with these people and they're helping these people understand how to run their business. They become a business coach as much as they do an IT coach, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's still consulting at the end of the day. We've come up with so many interesting names for and MSP sticks, right? It's like cloud. Been doing cloud since the 90s, but it wasn't called cloud, so it wasn't cool, right? Same thing with MSP, right? We're just trying to come up with cool acronyms and names that everybody can kind of feel good about. At the end of the day, we all should be consultants. We're trying to consult our partners how to be better because guess what? At the end of the day, if they're better, we're better. And it's as simple as that. It's something that I don't understand why, not us as MSPs, but just in general, the world isn't picking up on this approach. We had this conversation earlier, Alec, about, I say, stop selling. And it doesn't mean shut down your marketing, your marketing engine and stop pushing stuff out there. Stop selling. Start showing people your value. It's a difference. Show people what you do, how you do it, what solution you provide to their problem. Stop talking about products, bells and whistles, gadgets. What's their problem? What's their solution? And that will go a long way. And if you're talking about that right now, whether they start using it now or later, they're going to see it. And most people will realize this is real. I want to take a look at this. And, show them case studies. Talk about how it has helped people. That's what people want to see, right? They want to see results. At the end of the day, when I was an MSP, I was so busy, but if I saw an actual case study or something that worked, I would definitely look at it, right? I'm like, oh, okay, I want to see this. I want to see if it'll work with my business and how I do things. And I think that's a really big deal. And it's something simple. We can all do it. Stop selling. Stop looking like that used car salesman, saying, $1,000 off today. And that's not going to work. Talk about what you do, how you do it, what separates you, your solutions to their problems. It nets a whole different audience, and you're going to get clients who value what you do, and it makes life a lot easier when people value what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know for us on our side, I talked to our rep, our reps as we kicked everything off into the craziness of COVID, and I said, listen, if you've got somebody you're working with, keep going, but I don't want you guys going out there and just trying to push product at everyone, right? Now is the time that we should reach out to our partners, reach out to the people you've been talking to and just make sure they're okay, right? I mean, there's so much going on. There's kids at home. There's, I'm doing these Zoom meetings. I got somebody mowing the lawn outside. It's crazy trying to balance the whole work life of it.
I have the neighbor's dog, and he's a puppy, but he sounds like he's a giant Rottweiler, and he barks out here all the time.
I had the next door neighbor shooting off a potato cannon a couple weeks ago, so that was great. Yeah, a bunch of kids home and bored.
Hey, George, George threw something out there.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think that's a. First of all, I love George's little, little notes like castles and moats. I love that little phrase there. So, George brought up, the concept of working together. Even with your so-called competition. When I was an MSP, I never called anybody my competition. I thought what I did was somewhat unique and they were my peers. That was my library, as you can see behind me. These are my MSPs behind me when I was in the field. They were my library. I went to other MSPs when I needed help, when I had ideas, and I wasn't worried about them stealing my idea. I hope they did steal my idea. I would feel great knowing that I helped their business in some way. So I think to George's point, it's not about castles and moats. We're not trying to block other people out. Be inclusive. Start your own groups with other MSPs and have conversations. There's some pretty large MSPs that weren't so large when they started out, and they were in a group and they were with people they trusted. And one of the cool lines that came out of that was, he said, we didn't sign our deals with handshakes. We signed them with hugs because we knew each other so well. And they pulled 4 different companies together because they were all in this group together. They knew each other. They used the same PSA tool. You probably know who it is, Alec. I thought it was just a really cool thing to say, right? Because they got to know each other. So there's a whole lot of different things that can come out of working together with your peers, as I call them, MSPs. Make sure when you're trying to do stuff, use the brain power. We joke about our call later. I mean, those are expensive calls. We get on these MSP calls. We have 40, 50, 60 MSPs, vendors, all jumping on a call to just basically bring our community together and have a conversation to find out how we can better all of us.
Absolutely. Could you imagine if we actually went back and got the hourly rate of that call?
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. No, I think that's really important. I've seen MSPs approach it different ways. It really depends on so many things, the territory, what country they're in. I've seen it approached a lot of different ways, but the cool thing I've seen is some actually will start to team up with other MSPs because maybe it's geographically smart. Right. I mean, we see that a lot with I've seen a couple in my area, right? I'm in upstate New York, and sometimes people are just a little bit outside of that range. So being able to refer them, oh, you know what, go over to these guys, they can help you out, or, they're better fit for medical, or, we're better fit for legal, whatever it is. I think that's always a really cool thing to see. And you're right, if you drop the wall right now, furthermore, I mean, we're seeing a major shift in our economy. Small businesses right now are suffering, right? I think our MSPs, for the most part, are feeling really strong, and all the B-Boy partners I talk to are feeling really good and really positive. I think the downstream client side is where, it's a little bit uneasy, and we're not really sure what will happen. Right. But realistically, the economy is going to come back. It always does. And we'll see, even if it's not the same businesses, we're going to see businesses boom back up in those spaces.
You're going to see, you're spot on, but it's going to be explosive. That's the thing. And George, I'll get to that other point too, because Alec and I talked about that. So people are definitely a big part of all of this. It is going to explode. We talked about how, look, industry has had these problems before, right? Where we've had disruptions in the industry. And listen, I'm not stealing this. Simon Sinek had a conversation with his team, and I saw it and posted it and showed everybody. And it was pretty apparent that it was close to what we do in this community, right? We're agile. We can make those changes. And, the guys like Blockbuster that got beat out by Netflix, and the taxi company that got beat out by Uber and Lyft, the one common thread between those guys that got left behind was they weren't agile. They didn't make a change. They stayed with what worked for them then. And that's what we have to remember here. Even the best MSPs are thinking to themselves, okay, what's going to change? How are we going to change? Even subtle things like we had a panel yesterday, and a couple of guys were like, look, we don't do home computers. Now we do. We have to, right? Just little changes and subtle changes to how you did things before. Become agile, because on the other side of this, there's going to be a whole slew of new opportunities, starting with security and ending in telemedical and new verticals that are going to pop up and spring up everywhere. And there's going to be new challenges with that. HIPAA is going to put back those, they're not going to be as loose as they have become to let some of this stuff happen now. So there's going to be new regulations. It's just going to be a very large place for you to succeed if you decide to be agile. Look at new verticals, look at new ways to approach your customer base. But the first thing out of all of that is take the people first approach. Make sure that it's about the people and it's not about the products and the solutions and services that you provide. And that starts internally first. Your culture is the most important value that you add to any customer you're doing business for. So if you make sure that the people inside your organization are doing well, that value comes across to everybody you work on and how you do things. And, we've had numerous conversations about that in the group, Alec, and with you. And, that's always been my mantra, is the people that I have around me are smarter, which isn't too hard to do. And also are well taken care of. I want to make sure, and they're all need to be taken care of in different levels. It's not always about money, right? You got to figure out what works for each one of those people. And make sure that they're happy and their job is, what they expected it to be when you brought them on, right?
Absolutely. No, I think that's critical. And you're right. I think we're going to see a massive explosion of opportunities coming from this. I think we'll see a lot of MSPs are going to be adding line card items walking out of this, right? Whether it's remote services or at-home security, right? I mean, all those things I think we'll start seeing bubble up. So you're right. Netflix and Blockbuster is a phenomenal example because Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy it early on, and they said, no, who would ever want videos delivered to their home? And then, what was it, 3 years later, I think it was, and they were just gone. It's innovation.
It was less than 3 years for it to blow up, and then they were gone probably close to 3 years. They were just gone. They were just disappearing.
Yeah. Which is just wild. But I mean, those kind of things are going to happen. Unfortunately, I do see we have a couple good comments coming through here. I see you reading them too.
We're not going to touch on that. Look at Pete. Pete's taking advantage of this conversation.
You don't want to talk about Gronk's return to Tampa?
I love it. I think it's fine. You already know this about me. I am a talent first, team last. I'm a sports nut before I'm a team nut. I follow talent and, talented players. And listen, Belichick got a great deal. Gronk wasn't coming back, and they got a trade. They got a 4th round draft pick for something that wasn't going to happen in New England. So it worked out for him. And let's see how it works out for Brady. I wish them all the best. There's a couple other players that want to come out of retirement that weren't Patriots that want to come to the Bucs too. I just saw yesterday too. George has been posting the crap out of that, but let's get away from that. It's perfectly, and I'm not
all
red
right.
over that. I was already red, Pete. No, it's and to his original point of the MSP resources. I think that the best way to find the resources is the way we just talked. Get into groups, ask questions. It's always good to listen, and you're going to get a lot from that. But until you open your mouth and ask a specific question, you're not going to know. And I don't believe there's any one person in these groups that I know right now that are going to be the one that says, that's dumb. Why would you ask that? Because they'd be the first person, honestly, I would pull to the side and either discuss leaving the group or not being a part of it. We want everybody's participation. I had someone in one of my meetings that was clearly new, wasn't very technical, but I'll tell you what, she asked so many questions, and I had a guy say to me, well, that was crazy. That was all. I said, yeah. Her questions sparked so many conversations that turned into really cool, big ideas. They would have never have happened if she didn't start out by asking all these questions that led to these bigger conversations, and it all started from that. So there is really no, well, I want to say none, but there really are no, where no one's going to beat anybody up if you make a mistake or you deliver the message wrong or whatever it is. Let's be honest. Look at my face. Bright red right now because of my lighting is off. We're nerds. We make mistakes. Alex's going to stumble on these things every now and again. I definitely stumble on all the ones I do. I think that's what makes it real. We're real people. We're not polished. We're not put in place to do these things specifically. We're a bunch of tech geeks trying to help each other. So please don't feel like you can't speak up and talk to everybody and do that all around. If you're going to do this, you should be out speaking in front of every possible group you have, B&I, chamber, whoever will let you speak. And over time, you'll get better at it. Unfortunately, no matter how much I speak, I still sound like this, so I apologize. But you can still be very successful doing these things. But the first step is always the hardest. Don't be afraid. Get up, ask some questions. Now's the perfect time. We're only on video, so it's not going to be that bad. Just stream to millions of people. No. Right, Alec? Is that why you can do it?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and that's a good point. I mean, you should be getting out there. Now's a good time. I mean, I think there was the initial craziness for all the MSPs and moving everyone remote, but that for the most part is over in most states. People are at home, environments seem pretty stable again. So now's the time where you can kind of dial back a little bit. I've heard a lot of people highlighting, and in your group, actually, a couple people talk about you're never going to have an opportunity again where everyone's out of the office full time. If you had a project or something you wanted to do in their office, now's the time to talk about it.
Right.
Work on your business. If there's no projects, go back and look at your business. Go back and look at your customer base, right? How many of the customers are using all of my products, right? And if they're not, why, right? Because the less products they use, the less sticky they are, and less chance of retention. So I think there's a lot there you can really look at and kind of optimize your business today. You normally would not have the opportunity to with all the on-sites and everything else and all the craziness of it. So
if you're slow, do skilling. I know
Mhm.
Again, not to plug, but it's out there. PAX8 partners right now have the opportunity to do free Opsgility training and certification for their first person, and then they're doing $50 for each additional tech. That's absolutely ridiculous to get a full-blown training and take the test to get certified in a Microsoft certification at whatever level you want to pick. That's really cool. Get out there, do something.
That's
Hopefully
awesome.
you're getting your PPP and your idle loans to help keep these guys afloat if you are slow and there's some things that you want to do. And Alec and I and George, and we've had many conversations about PPP and how the larger banks are just not getting it right and the smaller banks seem to be making it happen. But here's the thing, the overall theme of this is new to everybody. And of course, if it's not regulated because they had to force it out as quickly as they did, it's not going to go perfect. And I can't believe anybody really believed that this was just going to come out and everybody was going to be dancing in, piles of gold and rainbows and flying unicorns. It's just, I think it was, for what it was worth, a lot of money got spread out really fast. We talked about this stat yesterday. I got to just look at it because it still blows my mind each time. More than 14 years worth of loans were processed in 14 days. Think about that for a second. So yes, the big
That's
guys
insane.
gave it to their bigger customers first and didn't think about the little guys. They're paying for that right now. There's going to be a whole lot of backlash on that. Some companies, took money that probably, shouldn't have because they're bigger, but we also don't know their bottom line. I mean, look, Shake Shack gave the $10 million back, but at the same time, they could have needed that money. Their employees are all out of work. They're only doing, I don't even know if they're doing the whole delivery pickup thing, but most of their teams are home. And yes, they're larger companies, but they still have bills to pay. So I want everybody to think about that for a minute before you start going out and bashing and, saying, oh, these guys are ridiculous for taking the money and these guys are, it shouldn't be like that at all. The next round is coming. I think that banks are going to get a little smarter because they're taking some backlash. I have heard since they said the money was shut off, 2 more or 3 more people in the last day that got funded. So it still is happening. I don't know if some of the banks took the money and then had it and then we're still processing and doing that type of thing. But some of the local banks here have given out money to a couple of people that I know, just in the Northeast area. So that's happening. And this new funding round that just got approved is going to happen as well. I would suggest picking a smaller bank and going and retrying it at a smaller bank instead of going back to maybe the larger ones that have been stumbling with this, because the smaller banks seem to have been getting it right and understanding how to disperse it. Plus, they don't have a large, they don't have these larger companies to deal with that they worried about not giving them the money and getting that 5 points, as George pointed out the other day, on those much larger loans. So I would
Absolutely.
I would say be smart about the whole process. Talk to your CPA. Nobody on these things are an expert at this per se. Get all the information, then go to your CPA, ask the questions, make sure what you can and can't use the money for, and then go to the bank and apply everything that your CPA told you to the bank.
Yeah, that is a crucial one. I heard a really good piece on Tuesday during your meeting. Somebody talked about how they were thinking about forward payments, prepayment of a lot of things. It's only covering you during those 8 weeks right now. So if you pay outside of that, that money is not going to be, held to the same standard of not having to pay it back. So definitely be sure you have that conversation with your CPA and you understand everything with it before you walk yourself into a bad situation just, 2 months down the line. So Keith did have a comment I wanted to just highlight real quick. I really liked his approach on this. So he said there's an optics piece for home computers versus access everywhere. So he said, I think it's paramount that the current work at home as a new value add to the corporate network, a long-term investment by your clients to allow for more work flexibility, core components to a disaster plan. And I think that that's really crucial because the truth is we will see a lot more work from home, right? There's been a lot of resistance and pushback because you remember what it was, right? Back in the early 2000s, it was horrible to work from home. Absolutely horrible to work from home. VPN networks, all that was sluggish. It was terrible. The setup and the cloud tools we have today allow us.
56K modem was amazing.
And that's the thing. We work with big data now, right? Data warehousing. I mean, you can't do that over, what we had a couple of years ago.
Right. Well, that's why we're lucky this happened now. We'd be crippled if it was even 5 years ago. We would be crippled by this. But getting back to Keith's point, it's 100% accurate. You should be talking about their long-term plans. This is the perfect opportunity to not say, I told you so, but to say, hey, guess what? your people are working from home. And if you want them to come back to the office, that's great. But don't you still want to have that plan? Don't you want to still have the ability to make sure that if something does happen to your office, that you could go back to work and be in the office, be home securely? Also, how many of your employees went home and found that the quality of life went up exponentially because they were with their pets, their family, whatever? They really loved it. And they were also more productive because people were not coming up to them and approaching them, and it just worked for them. Don't you want to keep them there? Well, guess what? We got them working from home. We did it as securely as we could in the rush that we were in. Now we have to revisit that plan and set up a process for that. And to his point, disaster recovery and business continuity just got a whole new thing added onto it, because business continuity was something that people just kind of glazed over. And now we need it more than ever. Who's to say that the second wave of this thing doesn't hit in November, or something doesn't happen and people have to shift back just as quickly? Having that plan in place makes you look like the value add, what's the word we always say? Oh God, I blocked it out of my head so much that I don't say, because it's just such an overused acronym. But you're the trusted advisor. That's what it is, because they believe, absolutely. Oh wow, even while this was happening, and before this, you guys were telling us this, so now we're piecing it together. If we had this would have been smoother, right? So that's a great point. That's 100% accurate. The plan should include everything. Your whole entire stack should be wrapped in. This is what we're going to cover. This is how it works. And next time this happens, it won't matter. You'll go home, you'll plug in, the systems will do what they're supposed to do. And that's because of our plan and that protection. And I also say, charge accordingly. Make sure you're charging the value of what that brings, not if they use it once a year. Don't go by that.
No, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, you look at disaster recovery a couple of years back, right? It was the idea of, if a fire burns down our office, we're still going to have that data. And then all of a sudden it switched to, hey, if ransomware hits, we're going to be able to roll back and we're going to be able to get our data. And I think now, again, it's that next shift of, hey, if something happens and we can't be in that office, we still need to be able to work, right? And we still need to have access to all of our data. So that is absolutely a part of that disaster plan, and it has to be. We had another good one that came through. It said, what does the next 3 to 4 months look like for MSPs, and how should they be positioning themselves for the boom in the back of the year, which you touched on right there. It's going to be a boom in one sense, or it could be kind of a hill, and then we might see another spike of the virus. But when this thing does wrap up, we will see a major surge. So how do you think they should do it?
Let me get my crystal ball out, Alec. Let me get my crystal ball. Look, nobody knows. Anybody that tells you they know, that's the person you probably should run from. If someone says, these are my ideas, then listen. There's a number of things that could happen, but the bottom line is plan for the worst, hope for the best. That's how business is done, and plan is the key word there. We talk about process, procedure, KPIs. If you're doing all of these measurements and metrics just at your bottom line to make sure that everybody's doing what they should be doing, they're being as efficient as they possibly can be, no matter what hits us, you're going to be able to survive it, and you're going to be able to adjust to that. I do believe there's going to be a major boom. When it comes, not 100% sure. I like to say that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and this time it's not a train. We have some pretty good things to look forward to. Like we talked about, security is going to be a big boom. Listen, some of our most mature MSPs have said to me, Ken, I'm still nervous about some of the things we did just because of the sheer speed at which we had to do it and the scope of endpoints that we had to get over to work from home. There's equipment that we would never have allowed stuff to be worked on, but we had to. And we did scan them, and it took hours to clean them up because guess what? They were loaded with stuff. So there's going to be, a whole slew of new technology products. DNS filtering is going to be a big part of this. MFA, password management tools. These are all things that should be in every MSP stack. They should be using them internally, and then that should be the stack that they use with their prospects and clients that they have going forward. The easiest thing to do is, look, if you have a good plan, you have a solid stack, and you're offering solutions that matter, it doesn't matter if we're up here or we're down here. Everybody needs to be protected. Everybody has to have a plan. And now, more than ever, they know that. Before it was, it'll never happen to me. A fire? An earthquake? Really? When's that going to happen? Well, guess what? We got something new. Pandemic. COVID said, hold my beer, right? And then came in and showed everybody. And I said this to you before, Alec. This is the single biggest disruption and the best thing that could have ever happened to cloud. It's a horrible thing to have happen. I'm not downplaying that, but it's the best thing to happen to cloud or any industry, period. Because at the other end of this, we just turned the whole entire populace of the world onto cloud services, right? They all know about it now. They know it works. And some of them are going to like it better than they ever thought they would. Opportunity, big opportunities.
Absolutely. You know, and I think that's the important thing right now. I mean, we're seeing such a drastic, crazy shift. And you're right, it was fast. It was really, we had reports of people on the phone side, people literally just ripping the phone off their desk and going home. You know, and that kind of stuff's just alarming. The one thing that always terrifies me with this whole thing is compliance. You know, compliance, I think, for MSPs is something that's really uneasy and scary. I had somebody that said the other day, you know, they heard a lot of reports about people giving their laptops to their kids to do homework on. Your kid didn't have a laptop. Not creating that second user and completely locking that thing down, you're leaving a lot of risk on the compliance side. You know, there's a lot of uneasy.
That's why technologies that wrap around WVD are going to be so much more important too, because that way it's just a session and the laptop can completely blow up, but it's not going to infect your session, right? So doing more with stuff like Teams and things that are inside like WVD and things like that are just going to be super important now. And then having tools, I will mention one tool because it's something that I don't have to be worried about being agnostic about, but if you haven't heard about Nuvolux, you should check them out. Pax8 does have them on the line card, and they're what I call the cloud age RMM tool. Because think about this, your RMM tool is great for all your devices, but what happens when you move to the cloud and you don't necessarily need as much of that? What's the next tool that's going to protect your cloud stuff? Nuvolux does that, and what it does is it allows you to do tasks much quicker. So I think tools like that are going to start to sprout up more and more as things get along, and it's just, it's multi-tenant, you know, that's going to be very important as we start to do more and more in the cloud, and we have to have that availability. So yeah, there's going to be, it's so exciting, right? We could stammer, you and I could stammer and talk about this all day. Earlier, we were supposed to have a 5-minute conversation that went on for over an hour, even though we were going to be jumping on this call doing the same thing. It really is an exciting time. As much as it stinks to be home, and having to work from home and not be able to go on the road and see all your friends and family and whatever it may be. Let's also remember that we could be in the military right now. We could be in a submarine for 3 months, right? We have access to food. We have access to TV screens, video. So, you know, big shout out to our military out there that have it much worse off while we're all being babies about not being on the road. I think that we have to, and also there's less fortunate than us that don't have laptops and don't have the access to the same things that we have access to. So I think we're very blessed on a number of different levels. One, that we can still do what we're doing. A lot of us can still work. And then two, on the other end of this is going to be a major opportunity to do some really great things for our partners, whether it be vendors, whether it be distribution, whether it be MSPs, whatever it is, there's going to be a lot of opportunity. Keep your eyes and ears open, pay attention to what people are saying, and then try to apply that to what you're doing now, and also reinvent yourself. Come up with some new ways to do business, because it's all going to change.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some major rebranding happen through this, and people be ready on the other side to be, you know, the go-to in their area for home and office work, right? Home and office IT, whatever you need, we've got you covered. You know, we've got your home licenses, everything all built into one, you know, reasonable user price. You know, I will absolutely be looking for that, because I'm sure it's going to be there. You know, and realistically, we don't know if this thing's going to last 2 more months, 6 more months. But, you know, we'll definitely see, you know, as that grows. We just got one in there.
You want to start with that one? I can. It's totally up to you.
Sure. I mean, actually, you know, go for it.
So we got a question about, is there any noise about MSPs getting rid of the office and going all virtual all the time? The answer is yes, no. I think there's going to be a mix. I think it's not just MSPs. Let's talk about the businesses as a whole. I think some of the MSPs are going to say, wow, not only can I have people work from home and still do the technology piece, because most of what we're talking about is like 90% of the stuff can be solved remotely. They're also going to say, we don't have to just hire in our backyard. We can give people opportunities across the country. Someone in a very rural area that can't get a tech job but is really good doesn't have to move. to come help your business out. Where I do believe that's going to happen. The MSPs are going to be looking a lot broader range of talent to bring into the companies. Do I think it's going to anybody will discuss completely going that way? I think it's a bit of a premature decision. I won't say immature, I'll say premature. And here's why. Tech teams work a lot different together than they do remote and from home. And I know a lot of them will say, well, it was a little more productive because Alec didn't tap me on the shoulder and have a conversation with me. But the majority of the engineers that I talk to, the actual engineers, the tech people who are working at these MSPs, say the same thing. I miss what we did in our pit. The conversations that happened in the pit that happened on the fly. We learned some new techie thing because one guy was messing with it and I could slide over to his desk and we could do it right there together. That stuff's not happening. On top of that, Michael Escalera, I'm not going to steal his thunder, is one of our MSPs, and he was on the panel yesterday. And what he was talking about is that human touch element. Someone coming up behind and putting their hand on your shoulder and saying, Alec, man, great job, man. You killed it today. The high fives, just all of that, the people portion of this, I don't believe will ever go away. I don't think we're going to all be sitting on seats and everything's going to be automatic and we're going to float around the world and not have to talk to each other and be in a virtual world. Do I think there's going to be more of it? Absolutely. I think that there's quality of life for some people is going to make them want to do that. I do think that we've done more weird things like this, which is not totally weird, but we've never done stuff like this, Alec, right? My group, we're pulling the community together. So it's bringing some really cool things out of it. And I think there'll be more of it, but I don't think MSPs will adopt it totally. I do think that they'll adopt some of it to make it easier on the people that really are more efficient from home.
Absolutely. And I think that last piece was the key of all of it, right? Not everyone is efficient working from home. Some people need that, person-to-person interaction. And you touched on one piece, and I think, it affects the engineers. I think it affects the different departments as well. I've worked in sales, I've worked in marketing, and there's nothing better to learn in a sales, environment than hearing the guy in the cube next to you. You're like, oh, this pitch was pretty good. I like the way you talked about that. And some of that can be helped, right? If I talked about this on Tuesday with Adam Slutskin. If you're doing those weekly calls, if you're doing daily check-ins, stuff like that just helps the team to stay in touch. And I encourage you, if you're not doing those, to start them. But it's a mix. I've seen really big companies, JetBlue, completely remote. So that's a major company that has tons of employees and they're all remote. Right. You see a lot with airlines. Actually, a lot of the help desk is all over the country. It's all people remote. So it depends. I think we could see it, but I also know other MSPs that are big on bringing clients into their office, and that's where they usually try and close them. Right, is bringing the clients in a little bit of a wine and dine kind of scenario, and they do really well with it. I don't think those guys will ever give it up. But who knows?
I agree with you 100%. It's like we said, the crystal ball. That's the main part of all of this. All we can do is speculate and try to take our best guess at what things will happen or won't happen. The bottom line is, if you're prepared, you're going to be fine.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of great materials out there right now. So pay attention, reach out to your vendors. Even if you want to just chat, Ken and I are always, online somewhere or at least available. Reach out to us, LinkedIn. We'll get our emails out there. Just let us know. If you need to have a conversation, you just want to talk about the fact that you're going nuts because your kids are running around you, screaming their heads off, and you're trying to figure out how to operate and how to work. We had a client who did that, and we sent him a busy light. It's a little light that just plugs in your phone or your computer. And when you're on a Zoom meeting or you're on a phone call, it goes red. If it's on red, don't bug Dabs. Leave Dad alone until that goes green again. Then
Can I put that in a separpe room in the house so that they're not vacuuming above me when I'm on a call?
You could, if you get a long enough USB cable. So,
that's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah, we've seen people use them forever in conference call settings or call center settings, but nobody ever really thought about using that at home. And now we sent one to my sales guy 2 weeks ago, and he loves it. He said it's the best thing that's ever happened to him because his daughter used to run in all the time and just burst in during demos, and he's like, shh. So and of course, it's nice to kind of have that.
Of course, now everybody should be more open and okay with that anyways. we all know that we have
Absolutely.
families running around. You know, I've seen guys have their dog jump up on their lap in the middle, and you know, babies. I'm like, hey, let's see the dog, let's see the baby, right? You want to. It also gives you
100%.
that. That's where you're getting a little more personal, right? Because you're getting to see things that you might not have seen at the office. You get to see their pets, their family, whatever it may be. So that's another kind of cool part of this piece. Is at least you're seeing, you know, my giant library. You're getting to see, you know, it's things that you wouldn't
Ken lives in
normally
the Beauty and
see.
the Beast castle.
Yeah. No, this is Harry Potter.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
Yeah. So I think that that's another one of the positives is that, you know, allow that stuff.
Yeah.
Make sure everybody knows. Don't be afraid. Be comfortable. Laurie and I did our first call just to announce that we were doing these, and we talked. Hey, listen, things are going to go wrong. Don't worry. And as we're talking about it, she reaches back to touch her green screen, and it falls over in the middle of the call. And you got to see this. It's live out there. You can find it. And the thing falls over, and all of a sudden her husband comes in with gloves on, like, what's going on? And it was just like, did you guys plan that? I'm like, no, not at all. So yeah, it's things are going to happen, and it's okay. Again, this is not some professional production that we're putting out there. And with all that, you know, be more compassionate about things that are going to go wrong, just in general. I think that one thing that is also happening is that it feels like, at least in most cases, that people are becoming more compassionate, nicer, a little bit more patient. And that's something we need to think about and really adopt more and more, because it's just a different time. And honestly, I feel like we should carry this over beyond this. I think it's better if we're just patient, compassionate, and it's easy to get upset. Look at me, I'm angry right now. My red face. It's so easy to get upset and angry about things, but take a step back. You don't know what the other person's going through. You don't know what's happening in their life. My wife says this to me all the time when I'm driving, right? You don't know what that guy's going through or whatever. It's true. You don't know what the other people are going through. So make sure that you're thinking about that. And look, it's so much easier to just step back, take a breath, and be like, I'm going to be understanding about anything that happens. And the same goes for all of us. Let's treat each other with a little more respect, a little more compassion. Try not to bash the other guy that's on a social media page. Maybe he said something wrong, but who cares? They made a mistake. I just feel like we have to be nicer to each other to get past all this. We got enough things going on around us to not have to worry about one or two bad apples. I think if we all stay positive, the one or two bad apples will flush out.
100%. And I think that's a great kind of closing remark. You know, if anybody has any kind of questions, any kind of follow-up, we'll be paying attention to these. You know, we're both tagged in the post for these, so feel free to just tag us back and ask us a question if you have something after this. We'll get our emails out there if you need anything, you know, to find us. But, you know, first and foremost, Ken, thanks for coming on. Always awesome to have you. And I love the community view. I've always loved your attitude with that. Again, we've got an hour until Ken's, so I'll be on there. Obviously, Ken will be on there. So make sure to get registered for those. If you haven't seen them yet, it's a really cool experience. You know, everyone, I think the biggest thing we're all missing from, you know, I miss the keynotes. I miss the, you know, the parties and all that fun stuff, but I miss the hallway chat. I miss the time of running into people that I don't normally see. So seeing everybody's face on that camera and getting to actually communicate and talk and hear about what's just going on in business, I find those some of the most educational hour-long sessions that I'm doing during the week. So definitely make sure to jump over, and I look forward to seeing everybody on there. And then we will be back on Tuesday. So make sure to join us then. And again, Ken, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Alec. Thanks, everybody. Reach out if you need anything. I'm here as a resource.